Adding fuel to Namibia's economic fires have become the norm. It was first the recession after government started its fiscal consolidation in 2016, and then we were hit by COVID, and now, well, fuel is fueling the economic fires. Welcome to Business 7. In this program, we are going to focus on the whole dilemma around the global oil price and how it's going to impact Namibia. We're also going to look later in the program, we're speaking to an expert to get his views on the fact that Namibia's census has once again postponed and what this means for policy in Namibia. Please stay tuned. They call it the tiger in the tank. At the moment, it's an extremely aggro tiger in the tank. Joining us in the studio, Robert McGregor. He's the economist at Ceres Capital. Robert, how widely is the whole volatility around the oil price and fuel prices going to impact Namibia?
Well, I mean, obviously is the first round impact which we see in the monthly fuel price increases. And obviously, I mean, with these large increases now that we've seen over the last few weeks alone, we do expect to see large under recoveries, meaning that we're going to have to see increases at the petrol station. But what I do think is quite useful in Namibia is that we see the Central Energy Fund tries to balance this volatility quite regularly. So if we look at the petrol prices in Namibia versus South Africa, you can see they tend to be a bit more stable here. The prices aren't as extreme or as rapid. And so going forward, you know, despite seeing these large global oil price increases, we think the Central Energy Fund, within its ability, will try and moderate that as much as possible. Obviously, that does mean when we start seeing oil prices come down, you know, in the future, they will try and absorb some of that to make up for the under recoveries that they are capturing at this stage.
Yes, it's very true what you say, and you often see that with the fuel prices between the two countries. Namibians get extremely upset when there's a big decrease in South Africa, but they tend to forget that our increases aren't that steep because we do seem to regulate better. But it's not just about fuel, it's going to go further than that in terms of impact, transport costs, inflation, etc.
Yes, so I mean, not just looking at the food price side of things, given the importance of the Ukraine and Russian region on food prices and wheat and similar, but obviously fuel isn't just the direct cost that you see when you fill up your tank at the petrol station, hopefully not too many times a month. But the other side is obviously we import a lot of our goods, and Namibia is a very spread out country, so a lot of goods get transported over far distances. And so those are the second round effects that we see will come through later. And so that, you know, that's a lot of our food that is imported from overseas or from the region by road. Those prices will slowly need to be increased as well, and we see it also in the taxi fares. I do think on the one side, some of the increases won't be as extreme given that households in Namibia are in a very vulnerable position. And so where we might see large fuel price increases, I think to a large extent we'll also see margin compression in the sense that a lot of people that are facing these high costs won't push them through entirely to the consumers, especially from the retail perspective.
Robert, you spoke about the direct impact of the fuel price increases and also the second round effects. The question is, the consumer are virtually flat on the ground. Do we have any capacity, the consumer, to absorb this?
So this is where it becomes very difficult, especially for lower income households. So your higher income households are able to shield from this better. They can substitute in other parts of their spending more easily. But for lower income households is really where the problem lies, because they tend to spend a much larger proportion of their incomes on things like transport and foods. And particularly that where we start to see large increases in things like public transport, so the taxi fares, and that obviously has a very, very large impact on them. The danger is that obviously the economy has flatlined from 2016 to 2019, that large contraction we had in 2020, the job losses and wage decreases we saw then. And so that means that it's going to be very difficult for a lot of households. Where there is discretionary spending, we're going to have to see more of that shifted away to the core necessities. Where households maybe had some room for savings, that will obviously decrease, and that's really the big concern. But I think on the other hand, as mentioned earlier, the other side is with this weak demand, it's going to limit to a large extent the cost increases pushed through to consumers at the end of the day as well.
A last question, Robert. We see some crazy figures being thrown around internationally in terms of a forecast of where the oil price may be heading to. From Sarah's side, what are your thoughts?
It's very difficult to judge at this stage, given that there's still a lot of uncertainty as to how things will unfold. I think in the short term, we will still continue to see quite a bit of volatility. I think for context, fuel prices were higher than this in 2007, but obviously the exchange rate was much stronger, so it wasn't as noticeable here. But I think the important thing to bear in mind is obviously as prices increase, so does supply eventually, because a lot of your marginal producers will come online. I suspect we might see with a lot of other oil producing nations that won't actually restrict their supply, but will want to benefit from these higher prices. And so we will see some additional demand or supply coming on as well. And so over the short term, still some volatility, yes, but over the over the next few months, we should start seeing that decrease again as more of your marginal production comes online and there is additional supply.
Well, it's great to see that at least you think there will be light in the tunnel. It has been very nice having you in the studio with some good news, hopefully there. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Last week, government said that it would have to postpone the census once again this year because it doesn't have enough money. What is the impact of this on Namibia and especially on the policy making in the country? We spoke to Dr. Omu Kakuya Matundu. He is a senior economics lecturer at the University of Namibia. Doctor, Namibia now than ever before needs current or reliable data. What is the impact of another postponement on the census on the country?
Yes, definitely. Good morning, and thank you so much. The impact is huge. The impact, I think, is known, and that'll be the census is the most comprehensive survey, demographic survey, and that basically provides information, the projections that are basically made something like 10 years into the future and the like. That is what basically inform government planning, local and foreign investors, even yourself, whether you should still be working here or immigrate to Nigeria or so, will depend on that data. So this is so important. Now, without it, it could cause a lot of problems in terms of planning. But again, if planning was something that we really value, data-driven decision making is something we value. That I will say we have lost a lot by postponing this twice. It was last year and again this year, and we won't know. Now, when you look at, for instance, the economic hardships that we are going to face, first compounded by COVID, now the Ukraine-Russian war, we don't see Namibia collecting that much needed revenue to run the census.
I think one of the main things that people would love to see from the census, and that's very important, is the impact the last couple of years have had on employment.
Yes, definitely. There is another survey, the Labor and Employment Survey, I think it is called, conducted by NPC, the NSA also. Yes. Now, when you want to tackle that, you want to send a word out there about your skill set in the economy, about population growth projections, so that you can not invite but attract local as well as foreign investment, so that they can set up shop and create the much needed employment, Jo-Marie.
Doctor, government said that it had to postpone again because it doesn't have the funds, that it's got more pressing matters that needs the money. And while one understands that, how does that reflect on government's ability to plan?
Yes, that is a tricky one, but I'll attempt that one. If you look at National Planning Commission, which is the mother of NSA, the National Statistics Agency, and those are the planning agencies, basically. They are the one providing the data, the other one doing the planning. For them, this year, their chairperson, who is Mr. Solomon Hay, was so excited. His word was, we are going having census this year. For them not to know that there is no money, for them to come up to this point. I need Jo-Marie now. What we know is that the importance of the census is in no doubt. But now, one thing that I am missing is that this discussion is not even at parliament level. What I think is that committees like the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, the Standing Committee on Economics, they should summon, that is Mr. Kanjode or Honorable Kanjode, the Director General of the Planning Commission. They should, Mr. Mwafeni, the Statistician General, they should go and explain not only why they did not foresee this, but how they are going to mobilize resources within a year or two to let the census happen. Because now what will happen, as I have said, because of the serious economic depression that we're going to face with running like the next 5 years or so, there won't be money, but they should come up with something, try to cut costs here and there so that the census can happen. And this kind of talk or debate, I haven't seen it in the National Assembly or nationwide. I'm so glad that Jo-Marie, you basically raised this issue, and all the media houses should take it up and take government to task so that this very important survey of the census can take place.
Doctor, as always, we are very grateful for your insights. We wish you a happy day.
Same to you, Jeremiah, and our viewers. Thank you so much.
A lot has changed in the past 160 plus years, but the world is evolving faster every day. Founder Samuel Lowell Price's version of a self-driving car was a really smart horse. Who knows how our great-grandchildren will get around? Here at PwC, we know we're responsible for guiding our people, clients, and communities through this constant change. How do we engage the more than 220,000 people across 157 countries in the PwC network? Through a clear and simple purpose, to build trust in society and solve important problems. What that really means is, in between our morning coffees and our evening commutes home, we all live and breathe the same core values. Here they are, the 5 things that make us, us. We act with integrity. We speak up for what's right, even when it's the harder option. We make a difference. We stay informed and proactively look for ways to better our world. We care about each other, about our clients and stakeholders, about empowering everyone to do their best. We work together. We know feedback, collaboration, and diverse perspectives help us deliver the highest quality outcomes. We reimagine the possible. Nothing great ever came from sticking with the status quo. We always challenge ourselves to innovate. Our values make us who we are and will help propel us toward the legacy we've envisioned for the future. A sentiment Sam and his horse would have definitely stood behind.
We're back with the oil issue, and we heard what local experts have to say about that. What do the international community think? Reuters filed this video.
Well, we're in the process of basically squeezing out 7 million barrels of Russian exports per day. It's a big number. It justifies this kind of rally. The barrels have theoretically still been allowed to flow. There was a deal booked for the first time on Friday of Urals grade Russian crude oil. That was the first significant deal done last week. It was done at a discount of $28.50 to dated Brent. That's the all-time lowest level. You're looking at prices that could consolidate in an area between $125 and $150 easily. You probably would get spikes to much higher than that. You can see the Russians are desperate to get those barrels out. They sold it at $28 below the international benchmark. That's virtually giving it away. So yes, it's an interesting situation. We cannot afford to lose 7 million barrels from the global supply chain. The situation was already tight, and you can't expect prices not to rally accordingly without those barrels. They can't sell barrels of Urals. They can't sell a lot of different grades, and they're struggling to keep the energy industry moving forward. They're struggling hard, and that's their bread and butter. It's basically all an energy economy. They can't move the barrel part of it, and that hurts everybody accordingly. It's very detrimental to them. It's very detrimental to the economy of Russia. But obviously, crude oil at $150 here in the West, well, they're not quite there yet, but we were pretty close this morning, is not good for anybody in the West either. Saudis have enough to increase production by a certain degree, maybe 2-3 million barrels at the most. Iranian sanctions, that would bring it on board 1.3 million barrels after, say, 3 to 6 months. But 7 million barrels, there's no way that we could continue without higher prices without those barrels. I think that it's hard to get the U.S. producer to step up at this point and really start to bring barrels to market. For example, they're doing very well right now. They've been through this boom bust cycle before, and they're the ones that get burned every time. They don't want to increase production, and as soon as they hit the highest level, the market goes down quick. That's how we got to negative prices in 2020. We got to the highest level ever, 13.1 million barrels, and then COVID killed demand and prices traded in negative territory for 2 days. Prices they're giving away, literally giving away crude oil. They don't ever want to have anything even remotely close to that ever to happen again. Ultimately, what will happen is you're going to have demand destruction against $150 in Brent. Keeping in mind, at the same time, you're talking gasoline in the States, $4 at $5. People will start to drive less. People will change their habits and start to use energy less. People will turn the thermostat down. People will use less energy. And that will turn it around to a certain degree. And that though they will have to a large degree. I mean, we have plenty of crude oil in storage. We're not going to run out in the next 6 months. We're not going to run out in the next year. Well, it will get more expensive though.
You know, a few weeks ago, I would never do this on a Saturday morning. Back then, I was standing in line all day. Now it's just like that.
You are using the FNB banking app like I told you.
Girl, it saved my weekend. Now I can do all my banking on this.
Payments, transfers, checking statements.
Even opening accounts. Just like that. Oh, did I tell you what my husband did?
Even me, I want to save time with what's the name of the app?
FNB app.
Don't be left behind. Make the switch to the FNB app, online banking or cell phone banking, and change the way you bank to change your life. FNB, how can we help you?
Thank you for joining us in the world of business for this week. Remember, Business 7 will be back with you next week, the same time, the same place. Until then, stay safe.